as Billboard Chris said, 3 times he walked away, and they followed him. They surrounded him. We've got some more footage coming up, folks, and you'll see just how bad it was. And he got slugged with a haymaker. And Officer, what is her name? Buckman, I believe. Is that correct?
Bachman, yeah.
Bachman.
I think
Officer
it's
Bachman.
Frederic.
Yeah, who cannot suppress that Chrystia Freeland Cheshire Cat grin. I don't know what she finds so amusing about it. She called it, correct me if I'm wrong, a consensual fight. That was a mugging.
Well, why don't we show the actual assault here?
Absolutely.
Because that was kind of the aftermath. So let's show you. And I think this was actually the second assault. So this is after the police have already arrived and they're supposed to probably prevent further assaults from happening. But nonetheless, this is what happened.
Why do you think they're getting that kind of representation? I mean, it's clearly was aggressive, violent assault.
You suck. You suck. Fuck
no, this
you.
is the second assault.
Fuck you. You're not wanted. Fuck you. You're
this is
a
the second one.
Idiot. You're a fucking
I don't know
idiot.
what to say.
Fuck
I guess
you.
these police officers
Fuck
are mostly
you,
indoctrinated as well.
They're
afraid of the mob.
Because you're a
I
fucking
think
idiot.
I think they're afraid that if they do anything to actually keep law and order, that they'll end up being on the end of this verbal abuse. So it's just cowardice from everybody all around.
People probably want to know, how do you keep your composure?
What's up?
How do you keep your composure?
Fuck you. 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 Get your fucking head up there.
So
Yeah.
So this is the second assault because the police are already there. So they were called after the first assault, and that's when the interaction started with this officer, Frederic Bachman, and I hope I'm pronouncing both the first and last name correctly. But we actually have, I shared in the producers chat here, there's some zoomed in footage that I wonder if we could just pull up of her face as this second assault is taking place.
You mean his face?
No, the officer's face.
Oh, I
she
see.
is in fact a female. There, so you see her in the background there. So she's been circled, and then there's another photo that you can see that she's like looking on with gleeful bliss almost. It's really, really strange that the officers just, they just stood idly by. They were looking on.
Unbelievable.
And they fail to act until the situation escalates. So their job, in my opinion, is to prevent something like that from happening. So when you see someone who's just standing there, and Billboard Chris, he has these signs, and I think the front said like children can't consent. Yeah. And on the back, he's wearing a dad with the noun and the dictionary, a definition of what a dad is, or a man, maybe. I'm not clear on what ones he was wearing that day, but those are kind of his usual MO. And so as soon as you see someone like that being swarmed by an angry, aggressive mob, as police, your job is to intervene and to keep that peace and to prevent that situation from escalating. And that group, I don't know, how many officers were there? 10, 15 of them stood idly by until violence occurred. And then they kind of get in there, except for that one officer who's sort of the main, I would say villain, but they say victim in this entire unfolding. She just stood there and smirked and smiled, and then stood back and let the rest of the police officers go in and handle the situation. This seems more to me like some sort of diversity hire than anyone who's actually competent and fit in their duty and role.
I think you're right, Tamara. So the question arises, given that a crime was committed on camera, no less, several cameras for that matter, and charges were not pressed, was that the law enforcement officer, was that her buying into the trans side of the argument and therefore she's biased? Or is it their higher ups? Is it the chief? Is it the politicians above the police that are pulling the strings that, hey, when it's a transgender protest, go easy on the trans people. They're such lovable, cuddly creatures, and we don't want to give them any aggro. I'll tell you, Tamara, it clearly shows, that video, it was not a consensual fight. He got ambushed by that thing. And it also shows, if you are continually dropping F-bombs, if you are resorting to violence in a debate, well, you know what? You really don't have much of a position, do you? Because if that's what your counter argument boils down to, you've lost. You've automatically lost. Once you start, swearing repeatedly and being violent, forget it. And I got to tell you too, Tamara, this just shows you how wrong we were when we go back 50 or 60 years ago when we started shutting down the mental institutions in our country. The idea was, there's all kinds of new pharmaceuticals. If these people just take their pills, they'll be okay. Well, 50 or 60 years ago, that blonde-haired thing would have been in a mental asylum. You know it, I know that, the cops know it. But having said all that, there is no excuse for this dereliction of duty. That was disgraceful.
Well, and that's exactly why we've just launched an immediate petition campaign at fireofficerbachmann.com. So it's the actual spelling I think is BUCHMANN. So fireofficerbachmann.com. And have the police really investigate this situation, because the way that this officer conducted themselves, the way that all of those officers conducted themselves, they're now putting out, their Twitter feed is blown up ever since this incident. They're now saying that they are investigating and looking for these individuals. They had them right there. They had the people involved. The assaults all took place in front of the police officers' eyes. They had them there. They didn't place any arrests. And they say now that they're investigating because of the citizen journalists on social media and the amount of backlash that they have received for not taking any action in the moment while this was all unfolding before their eyes. So you can head over to fireofficerbachmann.com, and at that special website as well, our reporter Drea Humphrey is investigating further. Both she'll be interviewing Billboard Chris, but she's also found the mother who was a complainant, I believe. And again, the details will come out as Drea continues her wonderful investigative reporting on the subject. But this officer has been the recipient of previous misconduct allegations. So this isn't a new thing for this officer to act act in a way that is not professional or becoming of a police officer. She has other misconduct against her, and Drea is going to be researching that further. And so you can find all of those reports as we investigate and launch them at fireofficerbachmann.com.
Listen, I love the police. My brother's a police officer. I respect law and order. I respect our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to you earlier today. I don't think a lot of you understand what I'm actually representing and the seriousness of this situation. But it is what it is, I guess. This is Canada, and people shouldn't be allowed to assault people without consequence,
I agree, Chris, but the thing is, right, when we get into people's faces and they get into our faces, it doesn't really matter who does the first push. It's considered a consensual fight, and maybe that's something you should. I
didn't get into people's faces. I was here for. You weren't
very close to people.
You weren't here.
And
you weren't even here. I came and walked. I came over to your car.
Yes, the first time.
After.
But the second time.
The second time, what?
When you were pushed on the ground.
Are you kidding me? I'd been walking away from them.
Yeah, and they surrounded
to do an interview with him. They came close. I walked away again to do the interview with him.
All I'm saying is at this point, maybe
they
you
surrounded
should ask your brother what a consensual fight is, right?
Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. I walked away from them 3 times. They were surrounding me. You all were doing nothing. A man yelled in my ear from inches away, and I tried to get out of this situation where they're surrounding me while you guys do nothing, and I immediately get punched in the face. And you're blaming me?
And whoever punched you should be charged.
Are you kidding me right now? This is totally surreal. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. Amazing.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.